Okay, in this tutorial we'll be showing you how to rig a Link model from the Legend of Zelda series, in particular Wind Waker, as exampled here. So I'm glad you looked at that. We're going to be accomplishing this through Blender 3D, which is an open source software that you can get for free online, which makes it amazing.
Hop, 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 hop.
I'm not going to go over the details of Blender and the basics. If you need the basics, you can get that in the link below. Blender Guru, he's a great guy, and he'll show you how to use Blender. So besides that, Blender. Alright, now first, what you need to do is go to blender.com and download Blender. Again, it is free, it's open source, it works on Macs and PCs. Secondly, download the asset files. If you want the Link model in general, you'll need to download this asset file. And if you want to follow along, everything you will need will be in the asset file. Again, this link is below. Alright, let's get started by opening up Blender. Something else I would do is import a different key configuration if you are using a MacBook Pro. I'm using a MacBook Pro and it does not have a number pad, so I've changed a lot of navigation shortcuts. You can import my configuration if you go to Blender key configuration in the link assets. Alright, let's get rid of our cube and our basic light and our camera. We'll add these all in later. Let's import our Link model from the assets. As you can see, we have our Link model here. Let's go over to the render engine and change it to cycles. And we're changing it to cycles because, you know, cycles is the bee's knees. The last person who used the internal was, well, he was old and dead. We can also see on the side here we have the OBJ mapped textures. The textures aren't set up. We'll look at that in the second part of this tutorial. Let's set up a basic camera here. I'm just going to move it around to make it look nice to frame our Link from Wind Waker. I'm also going to set up a sun lamp pretty quick that Cycles can use. For the sake of organization, let's move the light and the camera to just an empty layer. I'm also going to go and look at the Master Sword as well as Link model and make sure that there are no duplicates by pressing, W, remove duplicates, as well as pressing Alt-J to just make everything quads. I prefer working in quads. I think tris is ridiculous, and Blender likes quads better anyway. I'm going to come up to the modifiers and add Edge Split to the Master Sword and Link to make everything sharp and a little bit more cartoonish looking. Alright, let's go into full screen to get a better picture of what we are doing. Let's add our first bone. Alright, now this is going to be called the root bone. Let's go up to the object and actually name this Link Rig. Now be sure to name it Link Rig in the object as well as the armature. I just find this easier. Please be organized. I'm also going to turn on show names for my rig as well as X-ray so I can see through my mesh to my rig. This is very helpful. Again, let's go over to the root bone and call the root bone root. Alright, I'm going to go and center my root bone within my Link model now by just using the control properties. And then let's go into edit mode so we can add some extra joints and bones here. Alright, so to create another bone, select a joint and then press E to extrude it, and then with the G button, you can grab it and move it wherever you want to, in side view, front view, etc. What I'm doing is I am adding a spine, and I'm adding a neck, and I'm adding a head, and I'm adding even like hat bones, and place these all based upon your model. Make sure they're lined up correctly, and then of course go back and rename the bones accordingly. Like I named the spine spine, I named the neck, head, hat 1, hat 2, etc. A quick tip here is if you press the Z button, at least on a Mac, you go into wireframing. If you press Z again, you go into shaded mode. Let's go create the arm and the hand bones now, and let's remember that we're only going to do one side, the left side. Now, it's not a mirror, so the left side is actually mirrored would be on the right. But remember, we're not mirroring this, we're rotating this. So this is going to be the left. Let's rename all of our bones. I named mine pretty similarly and simply. I have upper arm dot L, lower arm dot L, hand dot L. Again, this is also a simple rig, so I'm not going to ring the fingers. You can rig the fingers if you so choose. I am just not going to, because again, this is a very basic rig with very basic IK handles. Nothing too crazy. Very simple. Also, just make sure that we line up everything perfectly and nicely so we won't have any problems later. The nicer you make this in edit mode, the easier everything gets down the road, because to go back and change something gets pretty hard later. Alright, let's go and create the bones for the leg, the left leg, and the left foot right now. Again, make sure everything lines up, like the ankle joint lines up with the ankle joint, the knee to the knee. Something interesting is the arm and the leg is actually connected to the root bone, but it's not actually directly connected. There's going to be a little dashed line saying that it's connected, and that's good. We actually don't want bones there at all, and this is just something I had to learn personally. Again, I'm going to name the bones simply lower leg dot L. I'm also going to do, upper leg dot L and foot dot L. Alright, let's go to the duplicating process now. So let's border select our everything on the left side. Not the root, not the spine, not the neck, not the head. Just everything on the left side. Let's duplicate it. Shift D, and then let's move it over to where his other side is, and then go to select and click mirror X global. And this will actually flip the bone. And then align it again. Something I forgot to do, unfortunately, when I was doing this is I actually put a dash L or underscore L. This doesn't work. You want to have a dot L. And the reason why is if you go to armature and then select auto flip names, it will make dot L's become dot R's, and that's pretty cool. Another fun tip is if your bones, when you duplicate them, see them rotated in a weird way and you want to rotate them back, what you want to press is Control-Alt-R. I think Control-R. Well, it's Control-Alt-R, it's Control-R. Hopefully you'll see me do it on the screen, and the screen keys will tell you. But this will rotate the orientation of the bone, and I'm not too worried actually about which direction the bones are actually facing. Just make them all consistent, because a simple IK rig will solve any problems. Now, if you're doing a more intricate rig, you really do want to figure out, pull up the axis, the bone axis, and see and make sure, your X's are up, your Y's are front, etc., etc. There's a lot of different ways of doing this, but it's a simple rig. So, yeah, just rotate those bones, make them look flat. Alright, look at that. All of our bones, or at least most of our bones, are in place. So let's start connecting the Master Sword and the Link object to the skeleton. Now this is actually pretty hard. It took me a really long time to figure out how to do this. We are going to do it via selecting faces and edges and vertices and assigning them. But first, let's select our Master Sword and select our right hand bone, and then select Control P, and when you parent this, parent the Master Sword, again select that first, then the bone, and parent it to the bone only. So if we move this bone around, you can see the only thing that's moving with it is the sword, and that's a really quick way to get objects for a character that are lined up with the hand itself. Same thing with the actual Link rig. What you want to do is you want to select the Link model, then select the rig, but instead of saying, hey, connect it to this bone, but say, create empty groups. What this will do is if you click on the Link model and go back to its vertex groups, you'll see that it's created a bunch of vertex groups with the same name as the bones, and this is very important. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit Tab for our Link Wind Waker model. And what we're going to see is all the vertexes and edges and faces. And I'm going to go into face mode because it's very simple. And I'm going to go to front view, and you see the first vertex group I have up there is spine. It's the first bone I created. Or not spine, root. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the bottom of the Link And I'm going to select all of it, and then you're going to see in the vertex area there is 4 options: select, deselect, assign, and remove. Now I'm going to assign this. Now be very careful. You have to have something. When you click assign, any face or vertex or edge that is selected is going to assign automatically. And if you don't want it anymore, you're going to click remove. Now, remove doesn't deselect what you've selected. It just removes that selection from that vertex group. So if you haven't figured it out already, what you're doing is you're assigning vertexes and faces to a bone. So when you move the bone in armature mode, that part of the mesh, not all of it, that part moves as well. Alright, let's go through one by one and select parts of the link mesh to the bone. So we've already done the root, so let's just move up the same way we created the bone skeleton structure. So I'm going to select the top part of link and exclude parts I don't want, like the neck and the arm. And what's really clever about this whole system is that I can select a really big part of this mesh, and if I want to make sure that I'm not selecting anything that has already been assigned to a different bone, I'm just going to go to my previous bone, like the root bone, and click deselect, and it doesn't assign or remove anything. It just deselects from the selection you previously made. So I can deselect it and be like, oh, sweet, so this next part will be my spine, and I'll do this with everything else in this mesh too. Also, this doesn't go over weight painting. Weight painting is very, very helpful. I actually prefer this method more. Call me crazy, but I feel like this is, for simple rigs, a lot easier to skin. Now, if you have a intricate human model and you need some bones to stretch some parts of the mesh at different values, like arms and legs and that kind of thing, by all means, please go into weight paint and do it in weight paint, because it's powerful. Alright, as you can see, I am changing my view a lot and selecting things and assigning them and reassigning them. I actually did make some mistakes, and you will make mistakes every time you do this until you get really good. I can now skin a simple model like this in maybe 2 hours, and that's not really bad for creating a rig and skinning it, at least for something simple. Now, some tips on selecting: use B for border select, use C for a little paintbrush selection thing. Use your Z command all the time. The reason why is because I like pressing Z so I can select through my faces to other faces and vertices and edges. I don't like using the see-through option on shade because it's actually more confusing in my mind. I like turning shade on when I know I only want to select the vertices or faces or edges that I can see. Another thing you can do is select parts of the mesh. Now, to select parts, you want to press L. L selects parts that are not connected, like vertices and faces that are not actually directly connected with other vertices and faces. And in models, this happens all the time. To clean up models, you have a good awareness of this in modeling, is that not everything in this mesh is going to be connected. Some of the things are going to be unconnected, and this is a method that should be avoided if you want to do anything like breakable physics, like having a model explode. You want to avoid having separate objects within one object. But it's very helpful if you're modeling. You can click L and select like a hand, for instance. I selected all the hands because they're not directly connected to the model by pressing L. If you don't want something, like I made a bounding box and I accidentally selected my hand, pressed Shift L. Shift L will deselect objects just like L will select separate objects within your object. It appears that we are done skinning, but let's check. Let's select our armature, go into pose mode, and move it around to see if it's connected. And you can see that I actually made a mistake, and the sheath links sheath is not connected to his body. Now, the sheath is higher on his body, so it should be connected to the spine. So what I'm going to go back in, hit Tab, deselect everything, select the spine, then L, select the separate object that is the sheath, and then click Assign again, deselect, select, to make sure that it did take that new assignment. And as you can see, now everything moves correctly. And again, like, it can be pretty hard going back and assigning things. I've just done it so much, I don't need to worry about making a mistake. I'm going to go to my armature tab, and I'm going to change my armature look to B-bone. And the reason why is I like B-bone. There's a couple other different options here. The reason I like B-bone is because I can actually change directly how the bone is, it looks, how big the bone in my view mode is. To do this, what you want to do is press Ctrl-Alt-S, either in pose mode or edit mode, and it's going to, if you drag up and down with your mouse, it changes the bone size. So what I like to do is make my root bone, keep it the same, make the spine smaller, make the neck smaller, make the head smaller, make the hat about the same size, and do the same thing. So you get this feeling of depreciation as you go into farther and farther away from the root bone. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the hat, and we're going to add a hat control along with our first IK. The reason why we're going to do this is so we can control the hat better. I only put 2 bones for the hat. So let's tab back into the armature so I can add my control bone, and I will call this hat control or hat IK. But again, just be organized about how you call these. And the reason why is because if I select the bones themselves for the hat, not any control bones, the hat bones, the one that's the bones that are actually skinned, you can go down to the bone options and bump up the segments. And what this will do is almost like split the bones in half, and whenever you bend them, they all kind of bend in this nice organic way. And it's another reason I chose to use the B bone, because you can actually see it in pose mode. You can physically see the segments that it creates. Alright, finally for the last of the rigging, let's create our IK handles. Now, how to explain an IK. What an IK does, essentially, is that you select one bone, and whenever you grab it, at least in Blender, whenever you grab it and move it, instead of it being ungrabbable and unmovable, because bones are usually connected, you can't grab something at the end of a skeleton. But if you add an IK to it and you grab it, what ends up happening is the entire mesh from the root, or entire bones from the root, will move, almost like this organic kind of effect, like the spring effect, like there's a magical line that connects them, and whenever you add an IK, there is an orange line. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this for the hat. So put an IK on the hat, and then for the segments, or how many bones it affects, only select 2. And what this will do is whenever you grab the hat and move it, instead of it moving in a really weird way, moving the entire body, it will only move the portion of the hat. Do the same thing for the arms. And now for the arms, what I'm going to do is add an IK to the lower arm, and connect it 2 bones up, so it connects with the upper arm, and whenever I move this arm, it moves the upper arm as well. I'm going to add one as well to the hand joint, and the reason I'm adding one to the hand joint is because I want it to do the same thing, but just have 3 segments up. But instead, make its influence 0.3. Something that helps me when I'm animating is having an extra control for the hand and the upper arm, because they do slightly different things, but I want the upper arm to be used, its IK to be used first as a main IK, and then the hand IK being used for tweaking. I'm going to do this on both of the arms. Then I'm going to go to the legs and do something very similar. I'm going to select the lower leg, add an IK to it, make it 2 bones up. Whenever I move the lower leg, press G, it moves everything else. Now you can reset any positions that you've moved by selecting everything, pressing Control or Alt G or Alt R or both, and it will just reset the position. This is really helpful when you're animating. I'm not going to go into animating. We'll probably get into that in a completely different tutorial. Okay, so that's the end of part 1, which is just going over rigging and skinning and IKs. Again, this was a pretty simple rig. Please feel free to play around with it, make it more interesting and confusing and awesome. But once it's rigged, you can move it and make it into any poses. Next, I'm going to show you how to do some simple cycles materials on this, because the materials are actually already pre-set up. I'm just going to tell you how to be using Cycle's node engine, which is really kind of complicated if you don't know nodes, but it's really not. So we're going to learn some of that, and we're going to learn in the next episode how to export this out in passes from Cycles, which a lot of people don't know how to do, and put that into After Effects for compositing. Alright. Well, I'm glad I showed you guys how to rig the Link model from Legend of Zelda. Again, if you're having problems with Blender or if it was really overwhelming for you, no worries. You can go to the link below. It's down there. And Blender Guru.
It's a guru, it's not guru.
Blender Guru.
Yeah.
Blender Guru will show you how to do the basics of Blender, so that should be good. Please, we would love to see what you guys create. Comments, we always love them. But you guys go out there, beautiful ladies and gentle filmmakers, and you have fun.
Classy.
Classy.
No swag.
No swag.
Because swag rhymes with